I don't run a jet boat except for when I go up there. Like don't do this for a living at home. And so it is just, I think, the intimidation of having to walk out onto that boat every morning and act like I know what I'm doing because, it's 50-50. Some days you're on it and you're like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. And then the next day you're like, oh my God, is this my first time ever picking up a fishing rod? Like, what is going on? And so it's just that constant having to reassure myself that, like, yes, you're doing this for a reason. Yes, these people hired you because they believe in you. By doing what I do every day and just kind of, not that I'm paving the way by any means, but just continuing to do what I do, I hope that someone somewhere is inspired by that.
Hey, welcome back to the Young Guides podcast. I'm Keaton, and
I'm Kyle.
And we have a great episode ahead. But first, Kyle has some words to tell you.
Yeah, I just wanted to check in with you guys. As we mentioned on our previous episode, we are now an affiliate with Heather's Choice. If you go to the Heather's Choice website and use our code TheYoungGuides10, that's TheYoungGuides10 at checkout, you can save yourself 10% off of any meal, whether that be a breakfast or a dinner, or off of packaroons. Again, we have our seasonal packaroons in stock right now. We have candy cane, Santa's Cold, ginger snap, and eggnog. I really can't choose a favorite of mine from those four. They're all really good. So get those while you can. They're great stocking stuffers for the holiday season. Go check out heatherschoice.com and get ready for your next outdoor adventure. Back to Keaton.
Awesome. So we have a really exciting guest today. Today's guest is going to be Nick Clayton. He's a fly fishing guide. He's a regular gear guide out on the coast for tuna. And then he also runs his own guide service for sea run cutthroats. We're very excited to have Nick. Nick is an awesome guy. I've done a trip with him before. Like I said, it's a very exciting podcast. He's got some great information to share. And then one other thing I'd just like to mention is away from it is thanks everyone for taking the time and listening to our podcast. Me and Kyle are very grateful. We've got a lot of great feedback just starting out. So, we're going to keep staying after it and bringing good episodes the best we can for you. And we hope you keep enjoying them. So anything you want to add on to that, Kyle?
No, I think you said it well, Keaton. We really appreciate everybody listening to us on the podcast, your engagement on our social media platforms, and people just reaching out to us personally saying that they like the podcast. And we even have people reaching out that could be potential featured guests. So we appreciate that. And we just hope that you will continue your support for what Keaton and I started doing.
Yeah. And like Kyle mentioned, we are on social media. Our only social media right now is Instagram. We are getting a website up, but our Instagram is the Young Guides Podcast. So just give us a follow on that, or if you have, you can DM me or Kyle on that too, and we can answer questions or anything you might have from a podcast, or, if you're a young guide or you're a guide in general that is looking to possibly be on this podcast, you can reach out to us there as well. So
I do have one more. I just thought of one more thing.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to come to Alaska next summer and want to do some fishing on the road system, the outfitter that I work for, Bear Paw River Guides, is providing a little bit of a promotional kind of like a giveaway kind of thing between now, which is today's the day before Thanksgiving, until December 24th. If you book a trip between now and December 24th with Bear Paw River Guides for the 2022 season, you are entered into a chance to get 50% off of your trip. So if you've ever wanted to come fish Alaska, fish the road system, we're only an hour and a half north of Anchorage. We have salmon fishing for 4 of the 5 species of salmon. We have rainbow trout. We have grayling. You can come and fish the bead drop in the fall. You can fish and catch as many pinks as you want in late July, early August. You can come put some cohos in the freezer if you come in later summer, early fall, or if you want to hit that smolt migration early spring for some big rainbows, you can come do that. Or if you just want to catch some big drailing on dry flies, you can come do that too. So we have really good Alaska fishing, an hour and a half from Anchorage. You could be off the plane, standing in Willow within just a few hours and having some extraordinary Alaska fishing. So if you ever wanted to fish up there, book a trip between now, December 24th with Bear Paw River Guides, and you have a chance to get 50% off of your trip. So find us on the website, or you can contact us or social media. We can get you to Shane, who will get that on the calendar.
Awesome. And as Kyle mentioned before, today is the day before Thanksgiving. So we are hoping from the Young Guides podcast to you guys that you have a great, safe Thanksgiving. If you're not celebrating Thanksgiving, we still hope you have a great, weekend, or if you're, just doing a get together, we're hoping that is also a great time for you. So without further ado, here is Nick Clayton, and here's our podcast, and we are very excited. So here we go.
Let's do it. Welcome back to the Young Guides podcast. Today, Keaton and I are sitting in with Kylie Vroman. Kylie will be talking to us about her background in fly fishing as a guide and some of her current research that she is doing. Keaton, what's going on with you?
Oh, nothing much. What's just a lot of rain in Seattle today. So looks like, what about you? You've been getting a little bit of snow up there, huh?
Yeah, we got about 2 feet in 24 hours here in Anchorage.
I think I was just talking to my girlfriend about it. I was like, man, if we actually had cold weather and this rain turned to snow, I think we'd be up there with you. We've had so much rain here in the Seattle area. I mean, it's like there's ponds in the middle of the road. I mean, you guys got snow, but we got a lot of rain here. So,
well, you guys don't know how to drive down there, so
yeah, no one knows how to drive here.
Even our normal, usual, beautiful, dry Ellensburg, we've gotten raining cats and dogs today. People on the east side of the state really can't drive in the rain.
Well,
they're like Californians.
Never rains there.
I know. So today it was like, oh, I feel like I'm at home again. It's like the west side out here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. We're going to get this started with a few questions. We just want to tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into fly fishing, hunting, and outdoors.
Yeah. So I grew up in an itty bitty town in Southwest Washington called Yakult. No one knows where that is, but it's north of Vancouver. And I grew up on property, and I've always had horses. That's another fun fact about me. I'm totally a crazy horse girl. So I've been riding since I was 5, and I would just ride around like a wild banshee on my pony all over the logging roads, all through the woods. My sister and I were always catching salamanders and snakes and putting them in aquariums and keeping them as pets. So I've always been very, very outdoorsy. And my mom is big into fishing. So her dad always had a house at the coast. And I mean, I remember being like 5 years old, and Grandpa would come back and he'd be cleaning salmon or cleaning tuna or whatever. And I was too little to go out on the boat because, I mean, they're going out 40, 60 miles in the ocean. But I'd be like poking the eyeballs while they're cleaning fish. And I just loved it. My mom has family in Valdez, Alaska too. So there's home videos of her 6 months pregnant with me out deep sea halibut fishing. She's got the rod butt pushed into her belly. So that was me, helping reel in fish in the womb. So I've always been very into the outdoors, but I actually didn't get into fishing really until I was in high school. So I started fly fishing summer of 2015 and started out, small creeks around my hometown. And the first time I picked up a fly rod, the first cast I ever made, the whole, like this, and I hooked a fish on a dry fly, then you're doomed. That's it. It's from there. So that's how it started. And then obviously I moved to Ellensburg for college, and I was like, oh my gosh, I literally live 5 minutes away from the best trout stream in Washington. And from there, it's just It's gone out of control, as you guys know.
For sure. And that's where the three of us first met, was at Central in Ellensburg.
Yeah. I didn't realize that you two, we all three met at the same time, like the same year. I thought you guys had been friends for a long time, so you tricked me.
No, Kyle and me, I barely knew the guy. I just thought he was some guy when I first met him. So we became friends a little later in life.
Yeah. Well, like you, me, and Keegan all met in the first year. And then we talked about it in the previous episodes. I think that fly fishing club at Central really brought all of us together, right?
That was really fun. I do miss that.
Yeah.
I think that's how I met you, Kylie, is through the fly fishing club that we started at Central.
And I think you, me, and Keegan all lived in the same dorm too, because I would like see the trucks and I'm like, ooh, fly fishing stickers. I should be friends with them.
Yeah. Awesome.
Good times.
Yeah, good times. And thinking about where we're all at today in the fly fishing community or in the industry, and looking back at like where that all started, and then how we all kind of came together and were together for that amount of time, and the things that we all learned from each other, and all those things that we did together. And then now this is where we're at. I think that's pretty cool to see where we've all gone.
Yeah. I think it's really cool too, because a lot of us had similar mentors here in Ellensburg, and like we've worked under a lot of the same people, and like it's almost like we were their children, and we have this similar upbringing and like all these values and things we've learned in the industry from these people. So it's cool to see like that beginning that started in Ellensburg spreading, to Alaska and to Seattle. Like it's cool. We're doing it.
Well, I think like to just add on, I think our mentors really show in the way we fish and the way we guide, and I mean the gratitude that we can't show these enough to these people that taught us how to become who we are today. So
for sure.
Yeah.
So once you came to Central, once you came to Ellensburg and you really got into fly fishing, what path did you take from there? Like were you fishing all the time? I know you worked at Rich's shop for a little while. Tell us your kind of your story once you got to Central.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was every chance I get. And this is so funny because I was literally, before we filmed or we started this tonight, I was listening to Kyle's episode and I was cracking up when you were talking about the Yakima River being a fickle bitch. It is a hard river to fish. So I show up, I've only fished pocket water on creeks with the same elk hair caddis for 3 years. And I get here and I'm like, oh my God, that river's huge. I can't wait that. So I'm like, I don't have a boat. I don't know anyone, but I'm just like gung ho. I'm like dead set. I got to figure this out. And so I remember, I think the first fly shop I went into was Whirly Bugger. And I mean, where I'm from, there's not really fly shops. There's Sportsman's Warehouse. And then we did have a fly shop that this sweet old man ran forever and he passed away. So it was like the legacy died with him. So I walk into this fly shop and I'm like overwhelmed because I had never seen anything like that, like with all the materials and just shelves and shelves. And I was like, I just moved here and I want to go fishing. And so, Steve gives me a couple things. He's kind of eyeing me like, what is this girl doing here? Whatever. And I went straight to Irene and I wait out there and these guys are like fishing under the bridge. And I'm like, hey, and I'm like trying to be all nice. I was like, what, what's been working? It was probably September. And they straight up turned and looked at me and they were fly fishing and they said, worms. And I was like, oh, like San Juan worms? And they're like, night crawlers. And then they just turned their backs to me. So that was my first impression of like angling in Ellensburg. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to let that discourage me. I haven't had a negative experience like that since. So that was kind of a one and done deal. But yeah, I was always at Irene because I knew I could wade there. I was down at Ump a lot because I knew I could wade there. And it was just talking to people at fly shops and learning spots where you can wade because it's a big, scary river. I mean, the flows in the fall are starting to drop, but it's still not safe to be out there as I mean, I'm still not a super experienced wader. I'm kind of a chicken, but, and then the first fish I caught was on an October caddis and it was like, like 8 inches. Man, trophy fish of a lifetime. I was so stoked. And then since then, I worked at the shop before Rich owned it. So it was actually Garth and Kyle Luke owned it. Took a little break from that and then came back and worked again for Rich. And I met so many people and I learned so many things, and people would, take me fishing on their boats, and we started running shuttles and I learned all the launches. And so it is just like this insane learning experience. So yeah, I look at the angler I was when I moved here that got told to use night crawlers versus now, we're out there almost every single day. And I mean, I don't guide this river, but if I were more experienced on the sticks, I would be something that I'd be like, yeah, I think maybe now I could give it a shot.
For sure.
It's been a journey. It's been 6 years. Jeez.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? It just seems like yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's a cool thing too about, I felt like the Kittitas Valley and just the Yakima River. Like when we all first came into it, it's like, you don't know anything about the river. You don't know anything about the different shops, the outfitters, anything. But then once you're there for a while and you're working in the industry, whether you're in a shop or you're guiding, it's like that huge community in the area just like shrinks. And it's like, everybody and everything that goes on. And I think that's really cool to kind of see the kind of like behind the curtains of like what goes on the Yakima River, really.
Our community is really cool, and it's so fun, like driving through the canyon, everyone's rigs, everyone's boats. It's like, oh, there goes so-and-so. And I love that it's a community, and there's not really a lot of, there's always competition. Fishing guides are fishing guides, but like there's not a lot of tension I've noticed between guides and shops on the Yakima, which is, you guys can probably speak on that more than I can. I'd like to hear some stories on that, but from what I've observed, everyone's pretty friendly.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody's out there doing the same thing. We're all out there to, one, teach people, but two, we also it's a job, and so we're all working, doing the same thing and trying to support each other. We've definitely had our stories, but for the most part, everybody gets along pretty well.
Yeah.
So I know that you went to Alaska. I can't remember the first year you went to Alaska just to fish. Tell us kind of that path and your first time fishing in Alaska, fly fishing in Alaska, and kind of where that led you to kind of further your journey in fly fishing.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that started it all. So my mom, like I said, she's really into fishing. She's always loved it. And that's something that we share and can do together, which is awesome. And my senior year of high school, my mom was like, okay, we're going to take you on a graduation trip. Where do you want to go? And for me, it was between Montana or Alaska to fish. And we have a really, really close family friend who was a guide at Togiak River Lodge. And she was like, well, we could go with Chris because his wife is like our really good friend. So she's like, and then we can go with Babs and it'll be like a fun girls trip. So we did that. And we were up there for King season in 2016. And it was like a week of beautiful, sunny, like 65, 70 degree weather, like more fish than you could count. The people up there are so awesome. And so while I was up there, the lodge owner was like, you really are into fishing. Like, if you ever want to come back up and work, we've always got a spot. And I kind of laughed. Like, I kind of thought he was joking. And Chris was like, no, yeah, you should do it. Like, you'd be perfect. And so I kind of was like, oh yeah, like brush it off. And then I started college the following fall and became broke very quickly because that's what happens. And So by the time, spring was rolling around and summer was coming up, I was like, maybe I should pursue that. So I reached out to the lodge owner. I was like, you guys still got a job for me? He's like, yep, you can come up August and September. And it was like, done deal. He's like, I'll buy you a ticket today. I'm like, are you serious, dude? So yeah. So I started out for 2017 and 2018. I worked the summers in the kitchen and doing housekeeping. But I mean, I was so gung-ho with everything. I was out deckhanding on people's boats. I was packaging fish. Like, I wanted to be a part of every single piece of the operation at the lodge. Like, I loved it so much. And my first summer, I went up for a month. And my second summer, I went up for 3 months. And then during that second summer, I mean, all the staff is all pretty much like returning guides. So we become a family, you live up there together, you eat together. That's your crew. And so they were all kind of pitching shit at me, and they're like, why aren't you guiding? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, well, obviously you're way happier on a boat than in the kitchen. I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, I'm not cut out for this. I'm a college student. Like, you guys all guide year round. Like, what do you guys, you're crazy. And they're like, well, we're just saying, we think you could do it. And they're just kind of egging me on. And then, I mean, to guide up there at that lodge, you have to get your Coast Guard license. And so I was like, there's no way, like, how am I going to do all this paperwork, pass this test, blah, blah, blah. But then this little fire sparked inside me, and I was like, you know what? I bet I could do it, just because that's how I am. So I came home in 2018, and I spent 10 days of my winter break as a sophomore in college in Tacoma, taking that test. That's a substantial chunk of change. That is not cheap. Got the license. And so I was like, okay, now what? So 2019, I went up again, and I was still working in the kitchen and everything, but I was still so gung-ho. I mean, I was out on a boat every single day, fishing from the bank every single day. Like, all the guides could see it. All the clients could see it. Like, that's why I was there. And so we had a guide get hurt partway through coho season, and I had completely come up there prepared to work in the kitchen. Like, I didn't bring any, I mean, I brought gear, but not enough to guide. I brought rain gear, but not enough for a whole season, kind of thing. And all of a sudden they're like, all right, Kylie, here's your shot. I'm like, tomorrow? Like, are you serious? They threw me to the wolves, but I did it. And then
So
I came back.
when you started guiding, were you just did you do gear, or was it just like, are you guys only fly fishing lodge up there? Or
so that's the cool part, is it's kind of both. Kind of depends on the season. So for Kings, we are mostly gear fishing. And then when coho season rolls around, you can basically client's choice. So you kind of don't really know from week to week what you're going to get.
Yeah. Are you guys mostly chasing salmon up there? Or do you do any like trout fishing or? Yeah.
So we market our trips as salmon trips, but I mean, you have clients there for 5 days. So they get to the point, and Kyle can relate to this. They catch so many freaking fish in the first 3 days. They're like, my arm hurts. Like, they can't catch any more salmon. Their 50-pound fish box is full like the second day. Yep. You can't keep any more fish after that. So it's just like, we go target trout, we go target dollies, and that's really fun because you kind of have to go further upriver or into the tributaries, because like Kyle was saying last episode, these are meat eating trout. They don't eat bugs. They don't care about your stupid pretty presentation of your hopper. They're like, nope, meat. So they follow your spawning sockeye up the tributaries, and like you throw a bead pattern in there, and before it even hits the water, you've got like a monstrous trout on there. So those are fun, but it's kind of a hassle to get to the spots, to get to them, and then you're like paranoid about bears the whole time because you're out there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So that was in 2019 you're talking about, right?
Yeah. So that was my kind of debut as a guide.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And so have you been back there since, or back to Alaska guiding since then?
Yes. So 2020, obviously, shit hit the fan. Didn't go up there because of COVID. And then 2021, I really was not planning on going up there because I was supposed to be using my whole summer to do my field research for my master's degree. And the owners of the lodge kind of called me and they're like, hey, we need a guide for coho season. And I was like, yeah, wishful thinking. Like, I wish I could come up. And then we had on the east side of Washington, the big public land closure, all the DNR land closed because of fire hazard and fires that were happening. Mm-hmm. So I had 9 research sites in Kittitas County, and I lost access to like 6 of them during that time. So I was like, I think it's a sign. And I called them and I was like, okay, I've got 16 days. Like, book me a flight. I'm on my way. That was that.
That's awesome.
I can't do it.
So, yeah. So you, and that was back at Togiak River Lodge. You did that for the coho season?
Yes. So I went up. It's kind of funny because usually, like I said, we do 5-day trips, but I went up during a weird period where they did a 5-day trip and then a 3-day trip and then a 7-day trip. So I got to work with 3 different groups, and I'm super lucky because, I mean, I've worked at that lodge not guiding for so many years that I know the program, I know the crew really well. They're my family at this point. And then we have so many returning guests that from year to year, we see the same faces. You know, they're my friends on Facebook, like all that kind of stuff. So going back up there as a full-time, you know, to guide, not to work in the kitchen, like all of our returning clients were like, oh my gosh, you're here. We're so excited. We hope we're on your boat. And so that was like very heartwarming because I love that place. I love those people. It's awesome.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before you went up guiding that you're doing some beaver research. Tell some people about like your degree and how you got to that point.
Yeah. So actually, my undergrad degree was from Central as well, and I got it in environmental science. And it's funny because when I first got to college, I wanted to be a vet. Again, horse girl in me, I was like, I want to be a vet. Then I started looking into vet school and how much that costs and the salary you make, and it's just not really realistic. And so I started off as a biology major. And then that first summer I went up and worked in Alaska. I was like mind blown by this pristine ecosystem and like seeing how a salmon river should look, you know, undammed, unpolluted, barely touched by humans. And that like inspired something in me. And I was like, we should have this in Washington and Oregon. Our states are very similar in climate. Like what is happening here? So that kind of brought me to change my major. So my sophomore year of college, after that trip to Alaska, I changed to environmental science and focused very heavily on like watersheds, water resources, the policy behind that. And then towards the end of my senior year, my advisor was like, have you ever considered getting a master's? I was like, hell no, I don't want to do that. I'm done here. And somehow they roped me in. They bribed me with a job where I worked for the college, and then they would pay most of my tuition. So that's kind of how I got into the master's program. And it was still following that path of like, I love fish. I'm the crazy fish girl. Like I've seen these pristine ecosystems and I want to keep that going for as long as we can. So my original thesis topic was supposed to be salmon habitat within beaver ponds. And for a lot of people, like if we have listeners that have gotten a master's degree or written a thesis, your proposal topic never ends up being your actual thesis. There's a lot of roadblocks and twists and turns that get in the way. So what had happened was Mid-Columbia Fisheries Enhancement Group, which is a fisheries restoration group in Central Washington. They had done a project from like 2011 to 2015 where they captured beavers in the Kittitas Valley that were nuisance beavers, and then moved them out of like urban areas or agricultural areas and relocated them to tributaries, hoping that they would like restore floodplains and do all their beaver stuff. But then they like lost them. They don't know if they moved to other streams, if they were, you know, subject to predation. So they kind of had to like abandon ship on that project. And so I came in and wanted to go kind of find maybe where those beavers went, and then if they were creating pond habitats where juvenile salmon could grow up in, you know, over the winter. That's how it started. But with all the roadblocks I had this summer with the public land closures, and then we had equipment that never showed up in the mail and all that fun stuff, it broadened out. And now it's just like Perfect. Beaver habitat and what they can do for the watershed. So still fish related, just not as fish focused.
That's super cool. I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't know about, like how important beavers are for the ecosystem, for the fish. And I think it's really cool that that's what you're kind of tailoring your research to, because that's something I feel like a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah, they are. I mean, the number one thing that I think is so cool is they, you know, obviously they dam our tributaries, block our smaller streams coming into the Yakima. So when we have snowmelt and runoff in the spring, they're trapping that, and then it's more slowly released throughout the summer. So we don't get big washouts and big blowouts in the spring, and we can get, you know, cool water coming down later in the season than we would. So it's like a much more obviously natural and sustainable way to regulate runoff without having to put man-made dams in there. So they're cool. I have grown quite fond of beavers in the last 2 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Kylie, where do you see this research taking you? Like, what's your end goal with your research, getting your degree, and where is that going to take you?
So I'm pretty lucky with this degree because it's really broad. So I don't have to pick like my dream job is working exactly for this agency in this position. I would like to work for a state agency in Washington, whether it's DNR, Fish and Wildlife, kind of wherever there's a job opening, I think that's going to be fitting for me. I have been looking at job postings lately, like, because I want to move back to where my parents are. So in the Vancouver, Portland area. And there was one the other day that was like a wetland specialist for some private sector group in Portland. And I was like, it's perfect. Beavers, wetlands, I can do that. But there were some other positions that, I mean, you think of the general like fish biologist, like stream ecologist. There was one that was unique that I hadn't seen before that was like biologist and like recreational coordinator or something, which I was like, that sounds like a fishing guide that does her master's degree. Hello.
There you go.
So yeah, it was like teaching like sustainability and conservation to people, as well as like kind of doing lab work and field work for some company. So again, it's like I don't have some dream specific ideal job, but it will definitely be working for a state agency to do conservation and habitat restoration work. Or I could just pull a Kyle and move to Alaska. That's really what I want to do, but
do it. There's plenty of room up here at what I've found.
You guys are all in a circle, hugging each other, trying to stay warm. I know it. Don't lie to me, Kyle.
Burning seal oil and
pretty much.
Oh man.
All right. So I want to circle kind of back around. You've explained about your research and stuff, but we're gonna like get to the what this podcast is about. What was it like being that quote unquote young guide when you were up in Alaska?
Yeah, it's a doozy. Like I said, the first year I wasn't planning on guiding. I got completely thrown to the wolves, but I am super, super, super grateful for the lodge that I work at and all of the staff there, because I have gotten so much support. They have been so encouraging to me. Like they're the big dogs. Like we've got guides, the best of the best, from Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and California. So it's like, it's pretty intimidating going out there and guiding next to these guys that do it for a living year round. And I take my summers off from college and go play and drive a boat around and pretend like I know how to fish. So it's intimidating, but I have been super, super lucky to work there for so long and kind of learn from them and have all these mentors before I laced up my guiding boots. So I had gotten to learn, they'd take me out all the time after lunch with clients, show me their spots, show me how they tie up their rigs, which is like, like fangirling, And so I had some rough days, some rough weeks. It's hard. It's exhausting. It's every single day, grind. It's windy, it's cold, it's rainy. Or then the flip side of that, it's like 85 degrees and you're like right underneath the sun in Alaska. So you just bake. So it's brutal, but I learned a lot about my work ethic and my dedication to something that I'm passionate about. And I could have never, ever, ever done it without the support that I had from the crew up there. They're so awesome.
Super cool. Yeah, the Alaska, the season is so short that you have to grind pretty much every day. It sucks, but that's kind of the name of the game up here, I feel like, for sure.
Yeah, you don't even get a chance for your waders to dry out, and you put them on the next morning and you're like, oh my God, this is cold. Another day.
Well, and it's so just wet that nothing ever dries.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then like with your trips, you did that fly-in trip, but for the most part, are you doing like a day trip and then you come home, or?
Yeah, either come home, which is it's an hour and a half each way, so coming home, or staying up there in a trailer. So I mean, they're like done. It's done at the end of the day, where you can dry out and sleep in a bed. But yeah, it's a little different. We're not like out somewhere like what you're doing, where you're there, like you are there for that amount of time, where I could come home or I could go somewhere else. I'm not isolated in that sense.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky. We live pretty bougie out there in the lodge. I mean, we have beds and hot water, and you can't drink the water, but at least you can take a shower. But I mean, our generator shuts off at 10 at night, so you better get your shower in and dry out your boots before your power gets turned off.
Yeah, for sure.
Time flies with the headlamp.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's fun experience.
So I guess the question would be, have you had any challenges as a new guide, whether that be with yourself, with clients, your confidence? Kind of tell us about things that you've thought about guiding that you kind of had to overcome, or things that you think maybe have helped you to get to where you are now.
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of self-doubt starting out because again, like I've been fly fishing since I was 17, but in reality, that's not really that long. I don't run a jet boat except for when I go up there. Like I don't do this for a living at home. And so it is just, I think the intimidation of having to walk out onto that boat every morning and act like I know what I'm doing because, it's 50-50. Some days you're on it and you're like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. And then the next day you're like, oh my God, is this my first time ever picking up a fishing rod? Like, what is going on? And so it's just that constant having to reassure myself that like, yes, you're doing this for a reason. Yes, these people hired you because they believe in you. Again, I'm super lucky with all my mentors kind of being up there in one spot to like pick me up and pat me on the back every day. But then it's every day. You don't get a day to recoup and replan and figure it out. It's like get up in the morning and you got to have a plan. And if you want to go to a spot and you get there and someone's already there, then you've got to have a backup spot and then another backup spot. And sometimes the fish want pink, sometimes they want purple, sometimes they want nothing. So it's like, it's kind of what you said in your last podcast, like having the confidence in yourself to know that you can have a whole bag of tricks to select from, and trying new things and asking for help. That is the biggest thing. Not being too proud to ask for help. You got to stay humble, especially as the young guides that we are. Again, we're working with the big dogs, best of the best in the industry. And most of the time, if you ask them for help, they're like, oh, hell yeah, I've got this and this. And they're super stoked to like pass on the knowledge, at least from what I've experienced. And so it is that staying humble and recognizing the days that you need help and not being too proud to ask for that help. Super important.
You know, the one thing that I've found as being like a brand new guide this year is, you know, even though you got to be humble and kind, you also got to come out with a sense of like confidence. Like you're saying, you got to know, you know, you got to get out there and be like, okay, you know, they hired me for a reason. But I think what a lot of people don't realize, and sometimes even I forget, is that we're gambling on Mother Nature. So she changes every day. So one day, you know, you're out there and the fishing's, it's like, you know, they're eating this jig or they're eating this fly every cast almost. And then the next day you take out another set of clients and you set them up, same spot, same bugs, same jig, same, you know, everything. And they, it just doesn't work for you. And you can try switching it up, and it's just the way it goes sometimes. But like I said, you know, just having that level of confidence is really important.
And adding to the gambling on Mother Nature thing, I have clients that I've taken out that have been coming to this river and fishing this river for 15 plus years. So their expectations are through the roof. And I am like, well, we're going to catch what we can catch today, boys. And they're like, you know, telling stories. I remember we sat in this hole in 2010 and we caught 50 fish in 5 minutes. I'm like, that's really awesome. Like, hopefully we can do that. Not going to happen, but like, yeah, that's kind of stressful, is knowing. I love the brand new clients that have never been there because they're mind blown. And then there's a guy that's like, I'm sick of this spot. We've caught 50 fish here. I want to go somewhere else. Like, it's exhausting.
Yeah. I'd take out brand new anglers every single time if I could.
You're so full of excitement.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, yeah, we had a brand new guy that started this year. He was like 18 or 19, and he was like at the bottom of the totem pole. And so I had seniority, and I would always be taking like, we'd be at the boat bar in the beginning of the day. He'd be like, "What trip are you going to take?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to take these guys." He's like, "Oh, well, you sure you don't want the experienced people?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I don't want the experienced people. I want to take out the newbies. You get the experienced guys."
Have fun.
They have expectations.
Dude, I took out some clients like a few weeks ago, and this guy hooks a giant whitefish. And like your older clients, you know, they get a whitefish, they're like, oh, it's just a whitefish. This guy was like jumping up and down. He's like, dude, this whitefish is amazing. He's like, if they could jump, this would be like even better, you know. And that's just like, I was just like, man, you know, this is exciting, you know. And I get pumped for them too. So, but yeah, the new clients are a fun one to take out. Not, you know, not bashing on the you know, the people that have come out with us, but we love our new clients.
We love our old ones too, but man, yeah. As a new guide, it's like, oh my God, you've been here longer than me. You should be running the boat.
Yeah. That's awesome. Oh, so I had you know, we talked about you being the young guide, but I wanted this is kind of a touchy question, but what about like being a woman in the outdoor industry? Do you ever face challenges? Do you ever feel like have you ever had someone get on a boat and be like, you know, a little questionable or anything along that line?
I think I've been really lucky because, I mean, I can count my negative experiences and my challenges with that on one hand, and that's not everyone's experience, but I'm hoping, you know, by doing what I do every day and just kind of, not that I'm paving the way by any means, but just continuing to do what I do, I hope that someone somewhere is inspired by that, you know? So it's funny that you say, yeah, like we had clients. So they fly in to our airport, and I say airport because it's a gravel strip. And we have, we bring 5 boats down to the bay because our lodge is 6 miles up the river. And then the airport is in the village, which is down in the bay. And oh my God, what a nightmare that is, because the channel changes in that bay every single day when the tide goes in and out. So we're piling up boats left and right. We're just trying to get to the boat trailers. And then we haul a boat up to the plane, unload all the luggage, pile all the clients in a van, drive them to a literal beach. It's like freaking, what is Normandy? Like, it's just boats and people everywhere. Pile them up in the boat, and they're like kind of culture shocked because they just drove through this like literal like Alaska State Troopers episode village. And they get on these boats, and then we go ripping 30 minutes up the river, and they're just like, what just happened? So yeah, one day this guy gets in my boat and looks at me and straight up goes, do you know how to run this thing? And so that's where I have to just keep my sense of humor. And I'm like, it's my first day. We'll see. And like, they kind of nervously laugh. And then I just do it, That's the only way to prove that you can do it, is just do it. Like, it's hard sometimes. It's nerve-wracking, but that's how I've gotten through it so far. And yeah.
Just stay after it. Keep
Yeah.
on hammering the nail. So
I'm trying to think of any other like challenges aside from that kind of, I mean, there's always the snobby people on Instagram. That is where I get really like, I'm not very confrontational. And like I said, I kind of use humor to like squirm my way out of everything, but I can't really do that on social media. And it's such a pain in the butt sometimes because I get nasty comments every once in a while. And I just delete them. But there was one guy who commented on a picture. And the story was, we had the boat anchored up right above Umtana Bridge on that flat. And it was caddis season. So it was just nuts. They're all tucked in under those trees, And the boat was anchored up. Cannon was upriver from me fishing. And I had hooked a freaking toad on a teeny tiny itty bitty caddis. And the current's just ripping because it's summer. And the flows were high. So I like dive bomb, jump out of the boat, and like chase this fish downstream so I can net it without breaking it off. And so I posted a picture and I said something like, this fish was worth jumping out of the boat for, or something like that. And this guy, who I don't know who he is, just some jackwagon on Instagram, was like, chasing fish down the river is a really bad fish fighting style and really bad technique. And we should try to keep the fish alive, sweetie. And it would have been fine until he called me sweetie. That's where I drew the line. I was like, you weren't there. You don't know the situation. So I don't really appreciate your comment. And then that's that. I think staying the bigger person and holding your ground when you need to, but then most of the time just kind of brushing it off and adjusting your hat and moving on with life is the best way to handle that.
Yeah, I can vouch for that too, because I've had people comment on my appearance or the way I look, and it's like, but if you click on their profile, most of the time they are like nothing. They're like in their mom's basement, have nothing better to do. And you're like, am I really, at first you're like, man, this sucks. This guy, he felt the need to come onto my profile and say this. But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm out here doing what I love. I'm in the best place that I can be. And you're probably sitting downstairs in a dark hole. So just, brush it off, get rid of it, and keep on trucking with the day.
Yeah.
That's, you're right. Yeah, crazy stories. And yeah.
Well, and that's, male, female angler, it doesn't matter. There's just always trolls out there just wanting to ruin someone's day.
They're mad because they're out fishing.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. I clicked on his profile. He didn't even have any pictures.
No, it's probably like a robot or something, who knows, but that's lame. No one deserves that. So
kind of talked about yourself, the guide, your research, again, as a young guide, as a woman in the industry, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? Whether that be guiding or working in your field that you're studying right now, what's that next 5 years, 10 years maybe? What's that going to look like in the future?
I see myself on a yacht with a margarita, saltwater fishing. No, I definitely want to move back to where my parents are, and that'll be cool because, big news, big surprise here. My boyfriend and I just bought a 20-foot Alumaweld sled. So we'll be down on the Columbia, and there will be lots of salmon fishing and crabbing and all that fun stuff in our future. So with that being said, I will continue with my, restoration work, wanting to work for an agency, living down there. But Cannon, who actually might be another good young guide for you guys, because he's a baby, he's 21. He's hoping to start guiding trips down the Columbia. So we were kind of thinking like, well, I have my Coast Guard license. Like, how cool would it be to kind of do like a his and hers guide business? Because I don't really know. I've never really heard of that anywhere else. So that could potentially be in the 5-year plan.
That's pretty sweet. I was actually at work today. I was like, we're talking to Kylie tonight, and I bet Cannon would be another good person to talk to.
Yeah. He'd be great, actually, because I don't remember, Kyle, one of you majored in business, right?
Made a what?
Majored in business. Maybe, okay, never mind.
Yeah, I did.
Maybe Keegan's girlfriend.
That would be far off. So anyway, that's Cannon's major. So from that, he like started his own guide business. I don't want to like go off and tell his story, but it's just funny how people from different backgrounds with different degrees like all find each other through fishing. So yeah, to be continued on that story.
Yeah, that's a little cliffhanger for the next one. So before we transition into our rapid fire question round, we're going to be asking all of our featured guests, is there anything that we haven't talked about or we haven't asked you that you think you should share, whether that be just you experiencing the outdoors, fly fishing? I know you guys do some hunting, guiding, your research. Is there anything that you feel you want to add that we haven't already talked about?
I'm going to throw a plug for Togiak River Lodge in here. If you want to book a trip of a lifetime to catch kings or silvers, and you want to be in remote Bristol Bay, togiakriverlodge.com or on Facebook. They're awesome. They're booked out through 2023 right now, so keep that in your 5-year plan if you want to go. Other than that, I think we covered a lot of good stuff. I feel like, I could talk for hours and hours about my appreciation for all my mentors and fellow guides in Togiak, but again, that would go on for like 6 episodes because they're all the bomb. So other than that, I think that's about it.
If someone wanted to follow you via social media, where would be the best place to find you?
Instagram, I am at Kai on the Fly, which actually, funny story, that started as a joke. Like, I was like, how funny, because it was at the time where girls were making like a Finstagram, which I don't know what that means. Is that supposed to be like their fun Instagram? Finstagram? I don't know.
Like something, there's a bunch of, everyone that does something different has a explanation for it.
Yeah, like a Sinsta or a Finsta. So I was like, what about a fishing Insta? Finsta. And then Kai on the Fly was born.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Love a good song.
There you go. Are you going to be guiding up in Togiak next year at all, or do you know what that's going to look like?
Yes, for sure for coho. I'm still a little bit too intimidated to do kings because it's a lot more technical bait fishing, gear fishing, and it's tough. Our king runs have been pretty bleak the last few years. Not in comparison to Washington by any means, but I'm hoping to be up there for at least part of king season to at least work around the lodge. But yes, I will be guiding coho next year.
Heck yeah. Well, sweet. I think this is a good time to kind of transition into our rapid fire questions.
I'm scared.
You should be.
All
I
right,
wrote
Keaton,
all of them.
I did. I wrote them on my lunch break today.
Journalism.
That's even scarier.
Keaton, do you wanna start out asking the first question?
Yeah,
He's
we
gonna
can
like
or
set a
something.
timer.
No, I was just kidding about the timer. We're not actually doing the timer.
Oh.
All right, these are kind of speed round questions, so think fast. So what is your favorite fish?
Anadromous ones. How about that?
Okay, that's broad, but yeah, we'll take it.
Okay, out of all the anadromous ones, what's your favorite one? Favorite salmon? Let's go salmon.
Oh, my coho. They're so fun. They're so acrobatic and stupid.
All right, what's your dream destination to go fly fishing at?
Bahamas.
I like it.
What's your favorite meal and or drink that you will take with you when you go fishing?
Beer.
What kind of beer? What beer specifically?
Oh man, I love an icy cold Rainier on the river. Washington girl.
What are you gonna be eating for lunch? What's your favorite river meal?
Ribeyes.
Ooh, fancy.
What is your favorite music to listen to while driving to do outdoor things?
Some good pump up country.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
Heck yeah. So you're headed out the door to do outdoorsy things, whether you're hunting or you're fishing, going hiking. What is the first thing that you grab? What's the most important item in your kit that you will not leave the house without?
My hydro flask, actually, my water.
That's a good one.
Keaton, you're muted.
Sorry. Oops. What's something you wish you knew when you first started fly fishing, anything along hunting?
Not to tie a streamer to 5X tippet.
That was a tough lesson to learn for me.
Bye bye, Dalai Lama.
Yep.
Oh, $5.
It hurt really bad.
The worst part is when you the one that gets me is when I throw a dry fly and it breaks off and you can see the dry floating down the river and you're like, man, I'm just waiting for a fish to smack that.
For sure.
That's the biggest fish I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Wow, what's something you would tell a new guide or somebody coming into the industry that you wish you knew when you started?
Don't be too serious. You got to keep it light and fun. Like it's your job, but you're also an entertainer. So.
Gotcha.
All right. So there's one thing that me and Kyle and I like to continue. We like to end the podcast with your favorite guide story. Okay. Let's hear it.
Oh man, I have to pick one.
Yeah.
Okay, so this summer actually I had a 3-day trip with a dad and his son was 8, and it was like my first trip of the season, and this kid was busy, like had to have a fish on at all times, and thankfully his dad could fish. He was a good angler, so I only had to like babysit one. But the dad wanted to catch a salmon on a fly rod, but the kid wanted to try even though he'd never picked up a fly rod before in his life. And I got the kid on a coho on a fly first before the dad. And he was like screaming and he like couldn't lift the rod up. And I'm like trying to hold it for him and help him. And then dad netted the fish. We all just kind of stood there in silence. Like, did that really just happen? And then we're like, woo, jumping up and down on the boat. And like one of my coworkers drives by and they're all waving. And oh my gosh, it was so awesome. That kid talked about it. He was in the lodge in his footy pajamas telling the story about the fish on the fly rod at dinner that night.
That's awesome.
So cute.
I could totally see Keaton being that kid in a onesie at the lodge talking about a big coho he caught someday.
Hey,
Well, then the whole staff joked, we're like, why don't we all have matching onesies? What the hell?
honestly, adult onesies are making either comeback, or I don't know if they're a thing, but they're pretty sick. So I might get one. You might see one in front of a Christmas tree this year with me in a onesie. So.
A young guide's uniform.
Yeah.
There you go. You have to wear that under your waders. It's required.
They might be a good underlayer, who knows?
It's just long johns.
Yep. Well, awesome. Thanks for coming on the podcast with us, Kylie. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me. It was super fun.
This was great. Well, as always, thank you for listening to the podcast. We really appreciate it. We can't do it without you people that tune in, listen, follow us on Instagram. If you're not following us on Instagram, follow us at the Young Guides Podcast. And we give updates on when we're posting a podcast or anything upcoming. Once again, thanks for listening. I'm Keaton.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Kylie.
And that was the podcast. Thank you.
Catch you next time.